I would like to call to order the Health and Human Services Commission meeting for April 25th. Let's go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Chairman Mitchell,
Present.
Vice Chair Erickson. Here. Commissioner Brennan,
Present.
Commissioner Kinner. Here. Commissioner Bory.
Here.
You have a quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Then we move on to the consent agenda. A hearing, and seeing nothing here. I think then we can move forward to public hearings. Were there any public hearings?
Nope.
Okay. Old business, also no old business. New business. So we'll move on to the 22-271 Consideration of Fiscal Year 2022-2023 Health and Human Services Funding Recommendations to present to City Council. So last year, the way we did this, Dr. Brennan, we put up a spreadsheet and everybody had a chance to go over their thoughts about every organization, and we kind of arrive at a consensus. So not to say we're going to be bickering back and forth, but we might be. So we'll put it all up there, and I think that everybody gets a chance to go through it. I think what was really difficult for this year in particular, doing the math here, there was $184,660 of requests. And of course, as we all know, $80,000 is what we have available to us for resources. So we're going to have to make some tough decisions. Jennifer, did you have anything you want to add before we go into that process?
Just a couple of things. I will toggle back and forth between the two Excel spreadsheets. If you wish to add your individual scores to the scoring rubric, we can track that here on this spreadsheet. I think what mostly you are focused in on is what I would like to get from each of you is your funding recommendation for each of the applicants. So if I could start with that and work my way according to the list here with what Chairman Mitchell listed for Boys and Girls Club, the AJCDC. We'll work across the screen, and then I'll go to Vice Chair Erickson. We'll put that all together. We can see where we're at, because at that point, Chairman Mitchell works really well at going through the scoring and consideration of the factors that they want to use the money for. So if we could start there, Chairman, that would be great.
That would be great. And I think when I go through my recommendations, I wanted to give kind of a brief rationale behind each one. I think it'd be important to, when we give our numbers, explain them. So I would start with the AJCDC.
Okay.
They requested 6260, and I recommend funding 6260. The reason why I think that they had a really strong presentation, and I think that, well, I know that every dollar is local focused, AJ focused, and they're creating capital through volunteerism in Apache Junction, and they're helping our residents. So I think that's why I wanted to award them the full amount. Next was Genesis Project, $22,800. That was the request. That's what I would recommend that they receive as well. Again, I believe the strength of their presentation, the fact that they're doing good work in Apache Junction. I think that they have the best partnerships of any of the organizations. They do so much where they actually have office space there for agencies to bring people in and sit and work with those that are in need, that come in. I think what Trinity was telling us about that compelling story, that's the kind of stuff we want to hear, that somebody can come in and get help and support. And the navigator position is the one thing they're asking for this year that they didn't ask for last year. And I believe that that's probably going to be a huge win for our city to have. So, you know, that person's going to have relationships. They're going to be able to help guide those that need it through the process, which we know is pretty difficult. So I definitely thought that would be huge to fund. So that was my rationale. Arriving at a New Leaf CAFA, I only felt that I could justify $5,760. And the reason for that was the hotel nights cost. The presentation they gave was quite a bit focused on food boxes and food distribution. But in my opinion, Genesis and the food bank are going to be the places where people should go for that. Even though I understand it's a different setup for them, they also see clients that are in Mesa. So sometimes the money might not always be dedicated to Apache Junction. They did mention 13 residents received shelter. I think domestic violence and sexual violence is a big issue, and I think they're addressing it with that emergency service. So that's where I arrived at that $5,760. With the Salvation Army, the presentation this year was pretty unclear to me. I didn't quite understand the request. Last year, there was a request for the swamp coolers and the vouchers, and I do respect that we have representatives from the Salvation Army here. But the presentation was given with a lot of numbers from the higher up level, not from the local focus. And I just looked at everything that was requested, and I couldn't find a clear justification for it. So unfortunately, I recommended 0. Looking at the food bank, they explained the costs have gone up quite a bit, 40% actually. I understand that completely. Last year we gave them full funding, and I know that every dollar arrives here in Apache Junction for our residents. And I know they do some good vetting where they require not only the mail, but your ID and everything to receive the funding or receive the food. So in this case, obviously we don't have $50,000 to give. We had to make some tough choices, but I did recommend $35,000 for them. I think what that does is it represents a 34.6 increase on last year, because we gave them $26,000 last year. So the percent increase is $9,000 more than it was before. And it helps offset all the costs, COVID, supply chain, all those things. And hopefully that will come down in future years. But at risk of sounding like Mr. Scrooge, I would recommend that maybe they cut back on the holiday hams or funding like that, just because if there is a place to cut, that's probably the easiest place to do so. With Boys and Girls Club, the remainder amount is $10,180. And yes, I am impressed by their new facilities. I think that they had a strong presentation, but I think this is more of a case of the requests and the funds just aren't available given the other requests that have been made. That's my opinion. There are historically years where Boys and Girls Club did receive only $8,000 and $11,000 from the council, so I think it does fall in line with some of those years like 2022, 2013, and 2013, 2014. So again, I just looked at history for that. So that's what I've got, and I'll turn it over to, I guess, Commissioner Erickson, you're next.
Okay. And I too had a more of a difficult time this year than other years. And part of it was, at least one of the agencies' paper presentation or information that they provided, they're not grant writers. They're local personnel, and they don't actually know how you put together a proposal that looks great on paper, but when we heard the presentation, it was absolutely 100% community-based and gave me all 5s plus as far as rating what they do for the community. So, I think that the numbering system, which we have, which we're not showing here right now, on just rating different areas of their application, it was a little bit more difficult for me. I'll start with, should I just?
Whatever you want to start with.
Okay, yeah, your listing is a little different than my
Yes.
listing. So, but I started with Apache Junction Community Development Corporation, and again, this is the agency I was talking about, that, they're local personnel. They are committed to the community, to helping the community to become a better place, and helping residents within the community that have had difficulty to help them with their homes, to help our beautify our community. Things that improve the health and well-being of our entire community. And therefore, I recommended the entire amount that they are requesting, which is $6,260. The Apache Junction, well, let's see, maybe I will go. Genesis, again, is a local community and has provided a go-to place for people who are in crisis, people who don't have another place to go to get something to eat. They have been consistent over the years and have met the needs of people as well as they could. Having a new position of a navigator, I think, is a wonderful addition to what they are able to provide, because having a person who is there day after day after day, gets to know the people that are going through a difficult time, will develop a sense of trust with them. That same person can network with the other agencies within and even outside of our community to meet the needs of that individual and can potentially help ward off long-term homelessness, can ward off some of the health issues that they may be facing, can help them patch their lives together. So I think every penny that we can put into this agency will return with tenfold as far as what we want to see within our community to help meet the health and human service needs of our community. And therefore, I am recommending the full amount that they requested, $22,800. The New Leaf, again, I know it as CAFA, their work with a population that has extreme difficulties is very important. And yet, it has some, in their presentation and in their application this year, they had some duplication with some of the food boxes, some of the personnel that were hired to help distribute the food boxes. The hotel nights are essential. The shelter that they do have here is of great service. And that was a very difficult decision I had to make as far as how much, they also do have a much larger organization that has more resources they can draw from to provide the services that they have. And people from Apache Junction may receive services in a totally another area of the valley. So, I recommended $7,500 for that agency for this year. The Apache Junction Reach Out Superstition Community Food Bank, again, does absolutely phenomenal work in meeting the food needs of our community. And the amount that was requested, was more than double of what we have to give to the agencies that are providing the services. And although I know every penny will be used for the food, when I did the calculations to try to meet the needs, I came up with $28,000 for the food bank for this year. And again, there are, I just appreciate all the donations, that our community has given, and even beyond, state and federal funds that are available. And hope that they're able to match what we provide and meet all of their needs. The Salvation Army, again, this agency is known and has been known for years for the work that it does within our communities. This year, the proposal to me also was confusing. I wasn't able to quite grasp what they were trying to do within the community. And part of it seemed like some duplication of services. Part of it, I just wasn't quite sure what they were wanting to do. What I would recommend is that, you work with us, work with other agencies within the community, show us what you are doing, and try to be a little more specific with the community. I know that within your evaluation review, you had percentage of change you wanted to make within your year, and yet there was no beginning number of how many clients, how many people, what percentage of change you had. But when you didn't provide how many people you were starting with and how many people you ended with, I had no idea where you would end up. So for this year, I did not recommend funding, but in the future, please work with us. And thank you for the service that you provide. The last one is the Boys and Girls Club. And again, children have a great need for mentors, for teachers, for learning opportunities to help them pave the right path toward adulthood. And having personnel that can meet that need at the Boys and Girls Club is essential. They have moved from an older location to a newer location, have increased the number of students that they have, and are looking at it continuing to increase. That's wonderful. We're happy they're in our community. They also are a very large organization. They have additional funding resources that they can tap into, knowing that our little community is strapped with how much we can provide everybody. I think the larger organizations to reach out to their parent organization and find the additional funds to meet what they have requested would be appropriate. And therefore, I'm asking that we provide to them $15,440. And I think that adds up to the 80,000. Thank you.
Thank you.
And am I next?
You're up
Yeah,
next,
Commissioner
Commissioner
Bory.
Bory.
Okay. And I'm going to start out with Boys and Girls Club since it's the first one on your list. I awarded them $20,000, and because of the work that they do and the help that they've been throughout this community over the years. Also, and I'm going to go fairly fast just because my voice will probably give out on me. I've recused myself on the CDC. Genesis, I have $20,000 for Genesis, and $4,000 for CAFA, or I guess that's New Leaf, I'm sorry.
You said 4,000?
4,000, And I put down 2,000 for Salvation Army, and for the food bank, 30,000. And,
Okay. You do not have to give the full funding.
okay.
You're fine. Commissioner Kinner?
Thank you. Well, first off, again, I want to thank all the agencies for coming in. I think that was just as valuable to me, actually, as the paperwork. It really brought it to life, so I really appreciate it. I'm not going to reiterate stuff that's already been said. So for the AJCDC, I'm recommending their full amount they requested. The same with Genesis, full amounts that they requested. And the food bank, recommending 31,000. Again, these are the three that stood out to me as really seeing where the funds were staying in our community. For where you're at, Salvation Army, I recommended 5,000. And New Leaf, I recommend 4,940. And Boys and Girls Club at 10,000.
Okay. Commissioner Brennan?
Thank you. So I have some concerns. Boys and Girls Club had revealed that they only have 11 male Boy Scouts. They have no female Scouts.
We're not talking the Scouts. This
Right.
is the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, I beg your pardon,
The
Your
Boy
Lord.
Scouts did not qualify. They did not submit the required paperwork.
Right, I've
My
completed
apologies.
two things. All right, and they, okay, so you're right. So Boys and Girls Club seemed, what I was most emphasizing with them was that they had some academic enhancement as they were dealing with trying to improve grades, having mentorship and other things. I'm predisposed to give them 20,000.
20? Sorry, my
20,000.
apologies.
CDC, the 6,260 is probably meager relative to what they have done. My 626,000.
Is what you want to add?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay,
6,000.
the full amount?
Full amount,
Okay.
I apologize. Right. My concern, though, was that they had the most inadequate presentation relative to their request for documentation and measuring that. They had no values that were there. They seem to have the false belief that if they publish code violations and their remedy, that it betrays some sort of confidentiality, and I don't believe that does. That would be difficult to track. And so I think those would all be purposeful. So really all I'm saying is they merit being funded, but they equally merit getting some guidance on how to structure some sort of proposal to receive funding so that it demonstrates what they're going to aspire to and how they're going to demonstrate that they reach those goals. Okay, that's my only criticism there.
Thank you.
Okay, Genesis, I'm a little more parsimonious about them. And I will first deal with my argument. I find totally inadequate 12 hours a week to deal with the needs that they're projecting that Navigator's going to fulfill. And I question them about having some sort of affiliations already in line so that they know that the time that the Navigator's there are going to be times that they're going to be able to make those referrals. Otherwise, it's going to be an exercise in futility. You're going to have lots of calls with calls back, and so that doesn't maximize those 12 hours. So I just think they have to better look at that, and as a consequence, I'm a little more parsimonious, and I will consider 16,000 for them, with the addendum that that be reconsidered if they demonstrate that they have real efficacy to what they generally proposed. In other words, I don't know if that's a possibility in the way this is funded, to have sort of a contingency for this other, another $6,800 or not.
It has never been done, and the point of having an application and a presentation is that you are prepared to justify what you are asking for.
Okay.
So the criticisms and the critiquing will be notated in the minutes and sent back to those applicants so that next year they can do a better job.
Okay, that's fair. A new leaf, as I said in the public meeting, I was medical director for them for several years, so I have to recuse myself. Salvation Army was really interesting, and they do a grand service, but as has already been mentioned, their documentation reveals that 2% of their budget is given to them by the Western Regional, and that's $800,000. That's quite a bit. And so I believe, if I recall correctly, they dispensed with their food services, delegating that to the food bank.
You are correct.
Is that,
That's what I heard,
okay, good, thanks.
that they gave up all of their food service.
Right. So in that vein, I would go with $5,000. Okay. The food bank seems, of all of them, relative to the volume of funding, seems to be the most in need of those sorts of resources. But I agree that they have to demonstrate what it is that they're really doing. What's the volume of people that they're feeding? I have no concerns like were suggested in a council meeting that there are redundancies. That doesn't bother me. People are starving, all over the world. And that doesn't magically change necessarily. So my recommendation would be 30,000 for them. So I come close, but not quite.
Okay. And I will say that the Reach Out does provide us with a list of names. We don't have age, we have addresses. So they are able to provide us with a justification as to the numbers that they are serving, with days that those individuals are there.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
Couple
Your-
things.
Okay.
One, we do have Captain Malone with us. I know it's a little unconventional, but part of what might have happened with the Salvation Army is just the leadership that was there at the time. I saw you shaking your head, Captain Malone. I don't know if you want to, if we were incorrect about the food service, but I would like to give you a chance to speak about that, because I saw her shaking her head when we were talking about the food bank thing, and if you want to give any clarification. I would say take a few minutes to do that, just because it might make an impact on what we're doing.
I don't think we'll be violating open meeting law because all of the applications are listed on the agenda and you can
Yeah,
call.
I just thought it might be appropriate at this point, just to have Darla say something, because I know you're back in charge of the local 805 Broadway, so.
During that, sorry, thank you, Jennifer. And during that time, Captain Maureen Lawless was covering for me, and there seems to evidently been some miscommunication. We are doing our food distribution.
Okay.
We have not stopped. Not only do we do our food distribution weekly, 3 days a week for 3 hours each day, we also are one of the only agencies here that deliver food to the homebound. If someone calls us and says, I need food, or I have a client that needs food, we got a call this afternoon about that. This woman called and she says, I have this client who needs food, and he doesn't drive. And my response was, we can deliver it tomorrow. So that is, I believe we are the only agency in Apache Junction that does do that. And the ones that we deliver food to, a lot of them are elderly. You know, fixing a meal is, you're a doctor yourself, you know that they don't do that, do they?
No.
So, but we get donations of prepared meals, and we make sure we save those for those people. So, and our numbers were down while I was gone, but they're coming back up. So we have not stopped doing food distribution.
Yeah, thank you.
We
for
are
the
there to help the
clarification.
community.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification, because I saw you shaking your head, and I figured, well, you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So that might help.
And hope you're feeling better.
Yes, thank you. And Dr. Brown, I was just going to ask you one thing. Have you been to Genesis at all before and seen how they operate with the food service?
No, I really haven't.
The 2 hours, the reason that it's that way, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, this is stupid. Go ahead.
Yeah, the 2 hours is that they serve every day for a 2-hour window. So that's where the clients are going to be from like noon to 2 every day. So that's why that was sort of a smaller window. I don't think it was like, but I know what you're saying about, oh, well, is that enough time? That makes sense. But that's why I'm curious to see, they've never had a navigator, so I'd love to see if they could accomplish it in that time, if that makes sense. Yeah.
That's perfectly fair, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
probably the volume. With the addendums that they imply that they want to deal with the needs, and needs can be urgent, and therefore, even such things, because I brought up, referrals to primary care and trying to remedy that stuff.
Yeah.
And with Horizon there, one would think that that might be. Is Horizon an HFC? Are they a health community that is both medical and psychiatric?
Yes.
Okay, so that's there, and that could be something that they could coordinate. But if somebody's there for only 2 hours every day, well, not even every day, they're only there for a little more than 2 hours every day for 4 days.
If I can state something, before COVID, Genesis had, and when they first started using that extra building, they had a schedule. They connected with the different agencies. Empowerment Systems was there. Horizons had a representative that would come, I think. United Way was there. These agencies would send a representative at regular times, and they had a schedule so that when people came for their meals, you know, they knew, well, that particular day, that would be when, you know, or if they needed to get an ID or something, they could come that day and they could get in and get that taken care of. So one person to be that navigator to help them say, hey, okay, can you come back? And I don't think all of those agencies are back in the fold yet, but by having that person on staff, they can form those relationships, get those agencies there, get them scheduled, get it on their website, and they may need some help with the website because it's still not up there, but I know in the past I had seen it on their website, and it was public knowledge, not just out in front of the building with a list of the schedule of who comes when.
Yeah, so that's all pertinent information. If they could orchestrate things that way, it would maximize the 12-hour interval and allow for scheduling by saying, okay, well, on this day, United Health is here, and on this day, United Way is here, on this day, the food bank is here to help you with stuff, and that would be much more efficient. It sounded just with the presentation as though it was something that was going to happen at the moment, and there was no guarantee that that was going to be able to be effective or as effective as it could be. It seems sort of happenstance.
One person can multiply the opportunities for the individual when they identify what the needs are. And if they've already connected with those agencies, they then can help them to know when and where and how to connect with the other agencies, even if they aren't sitting with them while they're talking with the agencies. I think it's a benefit to our community that we don't currently have.
Oh, that's a fact. I mean, really, yeah, to that degree, something is better than nothing.
Right.
I was
We
just
do
saying, is
volunteers,
this enough,
but-
though?
yeah.
And I didn't think that it wasn't that I was critical of them having a navigator. I just thought that the time and the resources were really limited, and that made it less than efficient.
Mhm. And if they can get other agencies that also have navigators, to have that navigator there, or, again, the term is different depending upon the agency, but have a person that can take care of the needs of those individuals that are at Genesis. Genesis, it's a one-stop shop then for people when they come in. Not only do they get a meal, but they can also get the help that they need that can help them to maybe get out of the dire conditions they might be in.
Fair enough. And we discussed, very tangentially, certain educational opportunities, and I broached that the local periodical had an article about Intel that offered a 3-hour credit for some technology and AI that is highly needed and could potentially lead to a job at Intel as well as further education. So, yeah, I mean, I think there are ways that things could be dealt with a navigator, ombudsman, whatever you want to call them, so that these are all facilitated.
And I know that there is some education. Other Side Ministries works closely with Genesis. I wish Trinity was here to kind of specify, but they teach a culinary program and they get people employment. So that's the only one I'm aware of right now. Maybe there's others, but you're right. That's a great way to help bring somebody out of the situation that they're in. So, yeah. I guess to try to form this consensus, I think what I'm looking at here in front of me is that I know Commissioner Borey can't vote on this, but we all seem to have agreed on AJCDC. So in the attempt to arrive at a consensus, that's one that I think when we look at the options, maybe that we would fully fund.
Okay.
As I look at the rest of the numbers, we're closest on Genesis. 3 out of the 5 of us have arrived at full funding opportunities there. If we want to take every commissioner into account, maybe we should go a little less than 22,800, but I don't know. I mean, I want to get the thoughts of everybody about this in terms of their consensus. I mean, was there any new information provided, Dr. Brennan or Commissioner Borey, that helps kind of arrive at that full funding, or not, or we still want to lower it?
You know, there was added information. My dilemma is that even exempting my recusal on a new leaf, I'm at 77,260, and we have 80,000. So I have no quarrel with adding a little more to that sum from the 77,260. That's approximately $2,740.
Okay.
And Commissioner Borey?
Looking at, I have about 4,000 left in there. So I could put 2 there and then 2, I guess, with Salvation Army.
Did you hear that, Jennifer?
I did not, sorry.
Oh, she says with the 4,000 remaining, she would put 2,000 on Genesis and 2,000 on Salvation Army, increasing it to 4.
Thank you.
So we still don't have a full consensus on full funding. Let me kind of, I'll reduce the amount that I would say I would give to the food bank, because I'm far above everybody else. But the number that I've arrived at for Salvation Army would be 3,600. The reason for that would be support services. What Captain Malone just mentioned about being the only agency that delivers food to people who need it, I feel that that's important. And so I would designate it as that kind of support that's not duplicatory of other organizations, and I too would reduce the food bank to move that over. Where are we on the new leaf? I think that we're all close in the fact that we haven't agreed that they're anywhere near their funding request. Is it the hotel nights? What is it that everybody's thinking about that? I know, Dr. Brennan, you can't provide comment, but we're all different on New Leaf, and so I'd love to get some feedback on that.
Mine was hotel nights.
Because the specific number for the hotel nights was 5,760.
Yeah, the way I put my funding together was for the order I gave it. CDC, Genesis, Food Bank, to me, are really dedicating to AJ, and therefore that's where my leaning towards giving them the majority was, so. For me, if I was to fund the full requested hotel for New Leaf, I would need to reduce, I would probably reduce the Boys and Girls Club. Thought so. Nope.
There we go.
Now I'm live.
Thank you.
I don't know, where are you guys gonna land
Yeah,
with that?
Commissioner Erickson, what are your thoughts? You're the one who
Well,
wanted to give the most.
Yes, and I would, too, it was the hotel nights, and if that was 5,760?
Yeah, that's the exact amount. Well, I'm looking at the proposal, and what they gave for that was 5,760 was what they needed for the hotel nights.
Okay.
And that's where I arrived at that particular
Yeah.
number.
Yeah, I think I would probably match that,
Mhm.
and then I'll wait with the rest until we get to the other ones.
Sure. Commissioner Bory.
Mine was the same with hotels.
Oh, okay.
She's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So down below here, where I've got commission recommending, we have different options. I have filled in AJCDC because you're all in consensus with that one, and we can work our way through with different options. So if you decide right here that you want to split this into 17.5, what happens on the end is it adds up as we work our way through, and then we can come up with different options and find out where you're comfortable. Whoops, that'd be 16,000. So we can always, work through different options and see where you're comfortable and come to a consensus that way.
Mhm. Just looking at the numbers, two of us were going with 20,000, two of us were going close to 10. One of us said 15. So maybe the best way to handle it is to split it and say 15,000 just as a placeholder.
To start?
Does
Okay.
everybody agree on that?
I agree.
Yeah.
That's middle ground.
And we can work our
That's
way
how we
across.
arrive at the consensus. I mean,
Mhm.
not everybody's gonna necessarily get everything that they need. So we'll put 15 as a placeholder.
Okay.
Did we wanna just put the hotel night request for New Leaf as a placeholder?
Sure. We can do
5760.
that. We can work our way down that way.
And for the food bank, do we wanna put 30,000 as a placeholder? Just the two of us said 30,000, two are at 31, one at 28, so maybe 30,000.
Okay.
For Salvation Army, it looks like just averaging it out, do we think? One of us has said no to that. I mean, Commissioner Erickson, are you willing to reconsider any dollars going that direction?
Absolutely. Whatever the average would be.
We got 17.6, so I think I got
A little over
17.6.
4.
So we can do,
4,300, I think, ballpark.
Yeah.
she's got, so we can up this and you can take away from somewhere else.
The average of all of us that
Boys
put
and
money on it
girls
was
Club.
4,400.
So,
Yeah.
and then she's got to drop 2660
from
somewhere.
Boys and Girls Club.
2660, Boys and Girls Club.
So-
Oops, sorry. You said about drop, about,
Right.
about here?
Yep.
Okay. And I am at, what am I short? This is where you find out I'm good, better with algebra than I am with numbers. All right, 120 would be 80 and 7,
13,020.
13,020?
Yep.
That puts me
Mm-mm.
over.
1220?
Oh, wait, it was 120 up, so my 780.
There we go.
There
Yep.
you go.
Speed math. So 4,400 we'll put as a placeholder here for Salvation Army,
Okay.
and then that will arrive us at what's left for Genesis.
You want to put in
18,680.
2,000, or do you want to put in,
Well, just we'll delete that column real quick,
sure,
make that 0 real quick. And then it says 61,000, so 80
So it's clearly above 22,000,
minus
and if
61.
you average the two threes,
So 18,580 is what that would arrive at. Oh, up a column there.
that's interesting, it seems.
So if we're gonna, that would be our first option for 80,000. It would be 15,000 to Boys and Girls Club, full funding to AGCDC, 18,580 to Genesis, 5,760 to New Leaf, 4,400 Salvation Army, and 30,000 to the food bank.
You know, I don't think that's accurate, I'm sorry, only because I have the lowest amount, and all the rest of you had 22,000 something. It's got to be higher than my amount, and
Oh.
this is lower than my amount.
What the spreadsheet's doing, we all have different numbers in the top columns, but when you look at the commission recommending where it says option 1 on the table just
Oh, I'm
below there.
sorry.
Yeah, this is one option
You're-
that we could,
You're adding,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so we could motion to do this, if everybody's comfortable. I mean, we have to arrive at a consensus. So this is one option that we have 80,000 given, and we've arrived at this number just by, again, averaging kind of everybody's thoughts. And it also takes into account the recusals, because those are factored into it too, so we don't have to,
Sure.
I think, Jennifer, they can vote on the full amount, correct, even with the recusals, once we get to this motion for option 1 or whatever. Is that correct?
no. They have to recuse themselves from the the CDC funding and.
Right.
and
No,
the
but
leave.
I'm talking about the vote, when we finally make a motion for the 80,000, they can vote on that, correct?
There will be separate motions because they have to
Oh.
recuse themselves.
I see what you're saying,
So
okay.
they cannot vote on we recommend the funding approval will be as listed. They need to recuse themselves. So we'll vote on each one
So we'll vote on
individually.
each of these 6, and then the recusals will, by
Right.
default,
So
be
this-
factored into the consensus.
That number here is 109, and if you take that divided by 5, this would equal this divided by this, which is that 21,821 is
Mhm.
what I got.
Yeah,
So I put that number down here. So you can look at it that way, and if you, does anybody want to go through these numbers? Are you happy with option 1?
No, I'd like to see Genesis at least at 22,
too.
personally. There were 4 of
Mhm.
us who came to that independently,
The 20,
Sure.
based on the paperwork and the presentation, and I
Mhm.
just really feel like this is a good use of our funding.
okay.
mhm.
So that's in option 3.
So where then would we take from option 1 to bring that up to 22,000? Because that would be,
Well, I think that all of us
that would
are
be 3420.
fairly close on the food bank. Again, thinking of
Mhm.
this all driving independently based on our own experiences and listening. So I think we're all pretty even there. I think we're all relatively even at the Salvation. I think it's the Boys and Girls Club that we are
Yeah.
really all over the place. So There are 2 that are very high and 3 of us that are not.
So you
And maybe this is where we need to
Mm.
investigate,
Mhm.
kind of where the differing opinions were.
And again, I love the Boys and Girls Club. When I was looking at it, I was looking at history, sort of like precedents that have been set. And there were years where 30,000 was requested and only 8,000 was given. And there were also years where they've received 8,000 and 11,000 from the council while requesting over 30. So there is a precedent for that if we have to make a decision or make a tough decision there. My feelings would be the same way, Michelle. I would want to, if we did increase Genesis, pull from Boys and Girls Club. But again, I want to take everybody into account.
Well, I think Boys and Girls Club has the option of additional state and national funding. Am I correct in
That's
that?
also something I consider too.
Yeah, so, which is where my number at 10 came into, the fact that they have so many additional more resources to them than Genesis does.
But I think that with Boys and Girls Club, that is the only agency with youth development in it. And so cutting that area, I mean, it's for working parents and parents that just, single moms. And so I would hate to see it cut anymore.
Where would you see it cut if you had to, or instead of, if we give the full funding to Genesis, that 3,420 would have to come from somewhere? What would be your opinion?
Probably some from New Leaf and maybe some from Salvation Army.
So last
Keep it
year,
at,
Boys and Girls Club served 368 members, 3% of their overall branch membership. But I guess I'm struggling in this space. It's just me, but I struggle to figure out what the tangible benefits. I guess I'm not, what are we increasing? What's the?
The comment that I was left with was, that when asked, well, if you did not get the funding, how would you carry on? They said they would be able to get the funding and they would not cut any of the services, which tells me, this is a huge organization and they're blessed with the ability to provide. So some of the other agencies that we are funding have no other alternatives. If they don't get our funding, their services are not going to happen.
okay, but you're looking at Boys and Girls Club and you're looking at Salvation Army, who are corporations, larger corporations, but you're not looking at the budget for each individual unit of Boys and Girls Club. So Boys and Girls Club has to raise their budget for this community. And yes, they do get money from national, and they do get money from grants that they write, but that's all work that they have to do on behalf of their organizations. And I'm sure Salvation Army is the same. So, I mean,
Taking that into consideration, I would be willing to slightly reduce Salvation Army to 3,600 based on the proposal for support services. And that's specifically in response to the fact that the application was kind of unclear. I mean, there is national resources available to a degree. And again, I go out there and help bell ring, so I'm a big fan of the Salvation Army. But at the end of the day, I will say that, yeah, there's other options, whereas I don't see those options being present for Genesis. So I would say a little bit from the Boys and Girls Club, a little bit from Genesis, a little bit from Salvation Army to equal the full amount for Genesis would be where I would go, but I understand your position too. So I tend to be more in line with what Michelle is saying and what Commissioner Erickson's saying as well. So I don't know, there could be. And I think we're all in agreement about New Leaf with the hotel nights. That was what their request was, so I don't think we want to touch that at this point, but that's my opinion on that.
For myself personally, I like where option 3 goes.
Oh, that's because sorry, I've got option 3 and option 5 are
are
You
looking
like your
better.
advice.
And this is the
I'm
fun
trying to
part
figure
of
out
trying
where
to arrive at a
No, okay.
consensus.
Because there's an $800 difference here from Genesis. It's not in Genesis here, but it's up in Genesis here, and it is away from Salvation Army.
Yeah, there it's
So-
difference, okay.
Given those numbers, I think option 5 is where I'm feeling intuitively. I don't know what everybody else is thinking at this point, but
I
Uh,
could agree with that.
I thought the commander for Salvation Army made a great point that I was oblivious to, and that's the transportation of elderly people and others as a resource that's really met by them only in the community. And I guess I'd like to preserve that meager other $800, considering what's there. Granted, though, I have to admit that the individual that was here revealed that you received 2% of your budget from a national organization that has $800,000 as a base. That's how you deduce what the sum was from that 800,000. So that's quite a resource, and I don't know if they're being a little tight with you all lately, or what. That could well be.
and again, I'm looking at the application, and the 3 requests that were made was the case manager position for 26,000, human needs supplies for 10,000, and then support services for 3,600. And I'm thinking 3,600 support services specifically for AJ, for the food delivery, for other items that need to be done. That makes sense to me. And again, that's probably just because of the application being unclear. But at the same time, that's where I think option 5 spoke to me more than the others.
Fair enough.
And also with what Darla was saying, why I changed my position to move that over too.
The only thing that I do not have up here is, and I think I sent it out over the weekend because I was having such trouble, was the funding that was received over the years from the applicants. Did you receive that attachment in an email by any chance?
Don't have the attachment, but I do have a printout of that.
I think-
And
Is
I
this it
know,
right, this is it right here.
I know last year, Salvation Army requested
there-
15,355, and we consensus-based awarded 12,200. And that was mainly for the swamp coolers. We were just off that really horrendous summer where we needed the cooling stations and so on. And then also there was the position that they hired somebody to assist with in the community, which I think was a huge positive success story. And again, it wasn't mentioned this year on the application, but it was a huge win from last year having that person support. So looking at these numbers, that's where that came from, the prior request from Salvation Army.
I can toggle between the next spreadsheet, or you can look at this one and just let me know what you'd like. Because this one talks
Yeah.
about what each one requested last year on the top line, and then the bottom line is what they actually received. Genesis asked for 12 last year, they got 11. CDC asked for 24, they got 6. So the top line is what they asked for, the bottom line is what they received. And this year, you can see the top line, you've got significant increase here, pretty much same here, very similar here. Jumped here for Genesis, because everything's increasing. CDC has
Yeah.
dropped.
Like it doubled.
The big difference for Genesis in my mind was the navigator position, because that really was the same request as last year, except for we're adding on something new capacity-wise. And I think given their success, that's why we were leaning that direction. So looking at this, I still think option 5 speaks the best to me, but I don't know. Do we want to start the process of motioning on it, or how does everybody feel? Any last comments there?
I think option 5 also would actually work well for me as well.
Agree.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
agree as well.
Mhm.
Option
Okay.
5 seems to be the one that is probably the fairest of all of the various manipulations that we've made thus far.
Yeah, and this is what it was like last year too. We have a lot, to arrive at a consensus, not everybody's going to get exactly what they feel or want, but I think this actually does take into account the requests that were actually made on the applications and for the specific reasons. So I like it.
And the councils ask of us for the
Yeah.
considerations. I believe this does fulfill it.
And when presenting, I'll mention that these specific numbers correspond to parts of the application that we all took into consideration and how we arrived here. I don't know if everybody on council watches all the presentations, probably not, but, you know, when I go to give the presentation, I could clearly articulate the reasons for each of these.
Good.
Yeah, so,
So what I would like is I would like an individual to make a motion to approve the 11,580 for the Boys and Girls Club. I'd like a second and then a vote. And then we'll move on to AJCDC, and at that point, Commissioner Bory would say that she recuses herself from the vote, and I'll get a conflict of interest statement from both of you after the meeting. And then we'll do the same for you, Dr. Brennan, when we get down to new leave. But we'll do a motion and a second for each budget item.
I can make
And
the
I'm ready.
motions.
Okay. And
right. You ready?
I am ready. This will take me just a little slower, so please
No worries.
take your time.
I will, all right. I make a motion to grant the Boys and Girls Club $11,580.
I second the emotion. The motion. I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay. And roll call. So Commissioner Bory, and this will be a yes or no.
Yes.
Commissioner Kinner,
Yes.
Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Chairman Mitchell.
yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously.
All right. I move to grant the AJCDC $6,260.
I second the motion.
Okay. All right. Yes or no vote. Commissioner Kinner,
Yes.
Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Bory.
Recused.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm reading just down my list. Vice Chair Erickson
Yes.
and Chairman Mitchell.
Yes.
All right, motion passes
Jennifer, you did say I couldn't
4 to
vote on
1.
that. I couldn't vote on that, correct?
Thank you, that is
Correct.
correct.
Okay.
Genesis.
All right. I move to grant Genesis $22,800.
I'll second that.
All right. Commissioner Kinner,
Yes.
Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Bory,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
and Chairman Mitchell.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. And I think we're on new leave.
Yes. I move to grant New Leaf $5,760.
And a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor, Commissioner Brennan?
I recuse myself.
Recuse. Thank you. Commissioner Bory,
Yes.
Commissioner Kinner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Chairman Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. I make a motion to grant the Salvation Army $3,600.
I second the motion.
All right. All those in favor, Commissioner Bory,
Yes.
Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Kinner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Chairman Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion passes. And Food Bank.
All right. I make a motion to grant the Food Bank $30,000.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioner Brennan,
Yes.
Commissioner Bory,
Yes.
Commissioner Kinner,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Chairman Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay. And I've lost my second page. I think,
AJCDC.
did we not do that
Nope, we
one?
got them all.
CDC, we did the CDC.
Right.
So I have Boys and
Okay.
Girls Club, CDC, Genesis,
Yep.
New Leaf, Salvation Army, and Food Bank.
Okay.
So all of that is done. And the next item on your agenda, let me close some of this down.
Information and reports, which is the announcement of community events. Does anybody have any community events they want to announce?
The opening of the dog park celebration on Saturday, April 30th, I believe it is. And it should be a fun day.
The dog park is already open, though.
It's open, but the grand opening is actually going to be on the 30th for the
It
pub,
is.
for the
We
public.
had a soft opening.
You're
Ribbon
right.
Cutting Thursday.
Right.
And I think I came Friday morning at 6:30, and there was already 2 dogs and a lady sitting in there. When I left at 7:15, there were still people in the park. So it's being very well used already.
Yep.
That's good.
And since we won't be meeting until the end of May, there is a food bank support with United States Postal Service drive on May 14th. So for the food bank, think about May 14th with the post office.
Just an inquiry, when is the meeting for the end of May?
It's always going to be the fourth Monday, so it would be on Monday, May 23rd at 5 p.m.
Okay, perfect, I'm in town. I'm gone the next week.
I do have that right, Jennifer. It's always the fourth.
You are
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
And if we have no business to discuss at that time, we'll move forward with canceling the notice or canceling the meeting, and I'll let you know. This presentation on your decision will be done, I believe, on the May 17th?
I have May
16th.
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 Yeah, the work session.
Yep. Okay. If you all wish to come, please let me know. I just post a quorum notice because there are 5 of you. So if there's 3, I'll post a quorum that you will be present, just in case. Please let me know.
I also would appreciate if anybody would come to that meeting, only because I know it was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be last time, so Commissioner Erickson helped out a lot with that. If there is any other detailed questions or needing additional support as to why we arrived at that decision. So I think I've got kind of pretty good notes about it, but in the event that I don't, it's always good to have support. Were there any other community events? I did want to invite everybody to the Rotary Club of Superstition Mountains. I do this every meeting, but at noon on Wednesdays at the Gold Canyon Golf Club. That is every Wednesday. Also, the Kiwanis Club has scheduled a shred-a-thon on Saturday, May 14th. It's listed here on my calendar from 9 to 11 at the City Council chambers. So right out here, they're going to do a shred-a-thon. It's a fundraiser for Kiwanis Club, and Kiwanis Club helps support the children. So definitely, if you have boxes of old documents to shred, old tax returns, things like that, bring them and help support them. So
Chairman Mitchell, is that $5 a box? Do you remember the price?
I do not remember the exact price, but I believe that sounds accurate to
I
me.
think it's about $5 a box.
Yeah, and I think Ted and Kelly Gremmel would know the specific answers on that from the last meeting, but I do think it is $5 a box as a fundraiser. And I know I've got a few boxes ready to throw in the shred bin, so, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, the Kiwanis Club does invite everybody to their regular meetings. The next one is actually Thursday night at 6 p.m. We're meeting at the Salvation Army again. So there is 805 South Broadway. And it's always the last or the 4th Thursday of every month. So feel free to mark your calendars for that. And with that, that would conclude the announcement of any community events. And I think we just mentioned the next meeting date, which would be the 23rd.
5 p.m.
Now, you're saying, Jennifer, if there's no new business, that could possibly.
If we have no business, we'll send out a cancellation notice.
Mhm. All right, so I guess then we will adjourn at 6:04 p.m.